Have you ever wondered why heart disease seems to play by different rules for men and women as they get older? It's a really fascinating question. For most of their lives, men are generally seen as being at a higher risk. But then, for women, something big changes. Today, we're going to dig into the science and unravel this biological mystery. It's a real tale of two hearts.
All right, here's the plan. We're going to start with the puzzle itself, then follow the clues. First up, the usual suspects, hormones. Then we'll look at a more unexpected player, our own immune system. We'll find the smoking gun, the body's hidden alarm system, and then connect all the clues to see what it all means for the future of heart health.
Okay, so let's set the stage. The heart of this entire mystery is a pattern that doctors and scientists have seen for decades, but they haven't really truly understood it until now.
So check this out. For a huge chunk of their lives, men face a greater risk of cardiovascular disease. It's just a statistical fact. But for women, menopause is this massive turning point. Afterward, their risk doesn't just creep up, it skyrockets. It eventually catches up to men, and in some cases, even surpasses them. This dramatic split is the puzzle we're here to solve.
So what's going on here? What biological switch gets flipped that causes such a drastic change? To figure that out, we've got to look at our first major clue.
All right, clue number one. This is the one you've probably heard about before, the most familiar suspect in the lineup, sex hormones. For years, they've been front and center in this investigation.
And really, the main hormone of interest has always been estrogen. Scientists have known for a long time that it seems to act like a powerful natural shield for the cardiovascular system in women before menopause.
And you can see that turning point right here. Before menopause, estrogen levels are high, but once menopause begins, those levels just plummet. And we're not talking about a small dip. This is a huge biological shift, and it has major consequences for a woman's heart health.
So how exactly does estrogen pull this off?
Well, it does a few amazing things. It helps keep cholesterol in a healthy range, it tamps down on low-grade inflammation, and it helps our blood vessels stay flexible and healthy. When that protective shield goes away, all those risk factors start to creep up. But as important as this is, it turns out hormones aren't the whole story, not even close.
And this is where our investigation gets really interesting. Let's bring in our second clue, which is a bit of an unexpected player in this drama, our immune system.
You see, the way we think about heart disease is changing. It's not just a plumbing problem with blocked pipes anymore. We now know it's a disease that's deeply tied to inflammation, and that inflammation is driven by our immune system. The very system designed to protect us can actually start working against us as we get older.
And that brings us to this key idea, chronic low-grade inflammation. The best way to picture it is like a low fire, just constantly simmering in the background throughout your body. It's one of the main features of aging, and it creates the absolute perfect conditions for cardiovascular disease to take root and grow.
Okay, so now we have our suspects on the board, hormones and the immune system. But what's the connection? What's the link? Well, let's look at the smoking gun, a very specific mechanism inside our own cells that ties everything together. Let me introduce you to toll-like receptors, or TLRs for short. Seriously, the easiest way to think about these things is as your body's microscopic alarm system. They're like these tiny little sensors on the front lines, and their whole job is to constantly scan for any signs of trouble.
So how does this alarm work? It's pretty straightforward. First, a TLR spots a threat. Now, that could be an outside invader, like a bacteria or a virus. But, and this is so important, it can also be triggered by distress signals from our own damaged cells. When it detects a threat, it sounds the alarm, which kicks off a chain reaction that ultimately leads to inflammation, calling in the body's defenses.
Now, when you're fighting an infection, this is exactly what you want. It's a great system. But what happens when that system goes haywire in chronic diseases? What happens if the alarm becomes way too sensitive? Or even worse, what if it just never, ever shuts off? Well, that leads straight to that damaging chronic inflammation we were just talking about.
Okay, we've got all our clues laid out on the table. We have the hormone differences, we have the role of the immune system, and we have this internal alarm system. Now it's time to put it all together and crack this case.
And here it is. This is the big reveal. It turns out that our sex hormones aren't just off doing their own thing, they are actively tuning the sensitivity of these toll-like receptor alarms. And what's absolutely crucial is that they tune them differently in men and women.
And this isn't just some theory, okay? We've got the data to prove it. This study in hypertensive rats shows these very real biological differences. You can see right here that some of these TLR alarms are just naturally more active in males, while others are more active in females. The bottom line is, at a deep molecular level, male and female immune systems are just wired differently.
So that brings us to the final critical connection. Estrogen seems to act like a protective dampener on this whole alarm system. It kind of tells the alarms to chill out, not to overreact. So when a woman goes through menopause and those estrogen levels drop, she loses that dampener. Her alarm system becomes more sensitive, it's way more likely to trigger inflammation, and as a result, her cardiovascular risk shoots up.
You know, this new understanding, linking hormones directly to the nuts and bolts of our immune system, it really opens up a brand new chapter in how we think about and hopefully how we treat heart disease.
So let's just quickly recap what we figured out. These differences in heart disease risk between men and women, they are deeply biological. It's not just lifestyle. Our hormones are directly messing with the dials on our immune system's alarm. And these toll-like receptors, the TLRs, are the key link in that chain. What this really tells us is that a one-size-fits-all approach to heart health is officially outdated.
And just to show you how big a deal this is, the authors of the paper we're looking at say that TLRs could represent a new paradigm. Look, when scientists use a phrase like new paradigm, that's a really powerful statement. It signals a fundamental shift in how we understand the whole process of cardiovascular aging.
And that leaves us with one last really fascinating question to think about. As we uncover more and more of these deep biological differences, from our immune responses to our hormones, are we heading towards a future where medicine, especially for something as common as heart disease, is tailored not just to you as an individual, but specifically to your sex? It's definitely something to think about.